Hello, cyclocross friends, and welcome to episode 134 of Cyclocross Radio. On today's show, it's a question and answer show, and to help me get through all of your questions and all of your answers and your comments and your concerns and your voicemails, Scott Diedenbach from Bike Shop CX is here. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Bill. What's going on?
Not much. Just, I guess we still have like some World Cups to get to, but we're kind of, everybody is sort of world's fervor is upon us, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody. I think it's like a month, right?
Yeah.
I mean, within a month of Worlds, everybody starts.
I think now we are
wondering.
officially within a month.
Yeah, well within a month.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool.
But before,
I'm doing it too, right?
Yeah. So we got a lot of questions about that, but before we do that, we just want to remind everybody that the reason that we get to talk to each other is because we are part of the Wide Angle Podium Network, and that allows us to put on podcasts and broadcast them to you. I know if you've listened to this show, and I know many of you have, if not most, you already know that. And every week we ask you all to be members. We're going to ask you again because, Scott, when we go through the numbers, the percentage of people who actually donate and the people who just kind of draft off the back and get a free ride, there are more of them. We got like one guy out there who's just pulling the whole field.
Do we have better numbers than like National Public Radio? Do we have a higher percentage?
I don't numbers wise, I can tell you we don't have as many listeners.
I'm sure that's true. That would be nice. Right?
But it would be nice if we could get a higher percentage of members. And one of the things that we are doing to entice people, well, you can do this without being a member, but it's sort of, you get to, I think you get to be part of the club, and then you get to enjoy the coffee as well, and that's kind of one of our perks, and one of the things that you can come to the Wide Angle Podium website. You can become a member, and then you can walk away knowing that in a week or so you're going to have coffee delivered to your front step by Grimper Brothers. They got the full Schleck, which they've had for a while, which is a great coffee. I've loved that, and now we have a new one, an espresso. That's the Hello Cyclocross Friends coffee. So,
Bill, I kind of feel like I've won a victory here because, like, you always want to record late at night.
Yeah.
I always want to record early in the morning.
Yeah.
And we're recording this one early in the morning, and I can actually be sitting here drinking the full Schleck while we record.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I feel like I've won a victory here.
Yeah, I'm doing the same. And I know that most of the time when we do those late nights, you're probably like, I should probably be making some of that coffee now so I don't fall asleep mid recording. Right. But
except then I would never get to sleep.
But along with the coffee at wideanglepodium.com, which you should all go to and become members. You got a lot of great shows. The Slow Ride podcast, I just listen. Look, they're all jokesters over there, and they like to kid around, but hey, one of the things that people are talking about a lot is transfers right now. They were the first, I think, out there to leak, because they're all about, letting all the inside talk and the rumors that Kate Courtney was going to Scott Schramm. They were talking about that on their show in November. So, you can get the jokey jokes from them, but at the same time, every once in a while, there's that little nugget in there that, they're on top of it. So that's
serious. It's serious journalism hidden in comedy.
Well, I wouldn't go so far to that. Something about squirrels and nuts or something. Hey, our newest show, the Gravel Lot. I'm looking at the lineup.
Wait, who's on that? Yeah. Who's on that show? The next episode.
It looks like it's Scott Diedenbach. Are we getting the Scott Diedenbach life story? Did Doug pull the life story out of you?
There was a week there where I was on like 2 shows and none of them were mine. So it was great. I mean, and like they said, it's kind of like the continuation of the discussion that they had with you about ways we can make, cyclocross even better.
Awesome.
So there we go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I look forward to listening to that one. Yeah, so that's up. That's up on the site now. Definitely check out the Gravel Lot. They have a great show and a great sounding show. Slow Ride, Consummate Athlete. Looks like I always bring up Consummate Athlete because everything else is pretty cycling centric. They have a cycling background, but also branch out into other areas. So what they got: base endurance and starting strength, and it's a question and answer episode. So check out the Consummate Athlete podcast as well.
And don't forget about Bike Shop CX.
Bike Shop CX. What are you guys chatting about?
The last one we posted was the special where I just kind of randomly, well, not randomly, but Skype called a bunch of the US riders over in Europe. And before that we had our SPD pedal show, and we're going to be recording a new one next week.
Hey, I use egg beaters and I think they're the best.
I heard you say that. That's good. That's good. I'm not going to comment on pedals ever again.
I just want you to know. They shed mud better than all the other ones, and as long as you take care of them, then you don't have.
All the SPD people are going to be coming for you, Bill. I'm telling you, through experience, they're coming for you. All you got to do is mention egg beaters. You don't even have to give an opinion. You just have to say the word, and they come.
Yeah.
So
I just want the
good thing is we have we have actually more than two. We have great pedal choices now. Yeah. That's the best part. So there you go.
There is going to be in our lifetime. There is going to be an elite racer who does it in cyclocross, who does it on platforms.
I was gonna say, are you gonna say platforms? Yeah, I mean. I think don't we have a question coming up about what's going to be the next innovation in cyclocross?
Ooh, maybe that's it. I can tell you right now. I can channel everybody who raced on Sunday and Saturday at Cyclocross Nationals, going, I could have used some boots and platforms for that running race. Nationals.
I think shoes is a great place for innovation still in cyclocross, personally. I mean, basically, isn't everybody still using mountain bike shoes?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know there's some advances in cyclocross specific things, but let's have a shoe that is just cyclocross. Nothing, I mean,
isn't there something, and I oh, by the way, people, we've started this show now. This isn't the intro anymore. This is the actual show. And we're going to get to your Q&As, maybe, or we're just going to go off on our own tangents. That could happen too. But so here's my question. Like, we talk about, you look at nationals, I joke about it, and you look at like these races in Europe and some of our other races around that have a lot of running in it. Do you need a sole that is completely stiff, the whole sole? I mean, shouldn't that be like the innovation where you're finding more of this hybrid where you still get that transfer of power by having 2/3, whatever, of your sole carbon and stiff, and then maybe some give in there, so it's better to run in?
Yeah, I mean, or I could certainly see where riders bring an assortment of shoes, just like you bring an assortment of cassettes for your rear wheel, right? So you can pick,
or even tires.
Or tires. You have 2 or 3 different sets of shoes, depending on how much running you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
I can totally see, and I'm sure there's probably people already doing that. But now I think the shoes are so similar, but I could totally see a time where you're still clipping in, of course,
right.
but you have a real malleable sole that you can run a lot in, like people would have probably used in Louisville, versus a course where you're mostly riding. Maybe there's 1 or 2 sets of barriers or something, and you have a much stiffer sole. So I could totally see that.
Yeah, and even the tread patterns on the bottom. I mean, it is kind of crazy that we just use the same. We basically all use mud tires on the bottom of our shoes every race, right? I mean, that's kind of the standard pattern. Those big lugs on there.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. And change the spikes, depending on how slippery the mud is. So, yeah. There you go.
All right, Josh.
Just like tires.
Josh wants to know. Our friend Josh, over at Trek, wants to know.
Josh was an email question.
This is an email question. Scott Diedenbach
Yeah.
If Worlds were this weekend, we'll start with the men's elite.
The easiest one.
The easiest one. I don't know. Is it the easiest one? Worlds were this week. Men's elite.
Uh-huh.
Who wins?
I still think, I've picked Wout the last 3 years against the popular wave of Mathieu van der Poel. But I think this is the year that Mathieu van der Poel wins again. I really do. I think he's a much more complete racer this year, whereas last year you could still see things bothering him during races and he would still get flustered. And I think Ball is a perfect example. If anyone else had the experience that Mathieu van der Poel had in Ball, they would have finished 50th or something, way down. He had a puncture, a crash, an almost crash, and still wins. So I think he's just matured a lot, and he has a full head on his shoulders now, and he's of course got the legs and the fitness. So I think he's going to win Worlds this year.
Do you think this was? I was sort of having this debate with someone about his level of poise, and I don't disagree with that. My question was, what happens when the result is still in doubt? Right? I mean, he is on such a different level now, and maybe that's just it, that he has this level of confidence where he's like, I'm fine. I can be a minute down and I'm fine against these guys. I'm that much faster. But What happens when it's a fair race? What happens when he puts his shoe into Wout's wheel and then Wout, something, ignites in his head and he's like, oh, race just started, and Van der Poel is the exact opposite, where he's just like head down and done. They're on the equal. You see what I'm saying? It's like,
I know what you're saying.
Once he gets in like a fair fight, is this new maturity and new, calmness still there?
Right, and this is what we see in a rider like Mariana Vos, right? She can be riding with someone with got equal legs for her that day, and she'll still beat them because she's just that smart and that good of a racer, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
So if he had somebody who had the same, could ride with him, would he be able to figure out a way to win?
Right. It's more that she's pulling on not just brute strength and technical ability. It's like it's more.
She's got
more
other tools,
the mental side of it.
Yeah. No, I just certainly don't think I wouldn't compare him to Voss like that, and I still think. Yeah, I mean, I think there's something there to what you're saying. I think if you got him and Wout together, I think I'd give that edge to Wout probably. Still,
yeah,
but not by much. I think Van der Poel's getting there for sure. So,
I see Wout, and I'm the biggest proponent of him. And they said that they did this last year. He's not working with Niels Albert anymore, but that was last year. The plan was Worlds. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, we're just going to put our head down, we're going to do our races, and we're peaking for Worlds. And it worked out. It's worked out the last 3 years. But I think that even in that, we would look at those races and we would look at Van der Poel, and then we would look at Wout, and then we would look at everyone else. This year, you're looking at Wout and you go, okay, well, is he that much better than Tone? Is he that much better than Michael Vanternaut? It seems like there are other players. I think most people would say Tone Erich is probably the second strongest guy out there and has had, his best season ever.
Yeah. Didn't Wout had this drop off about this time last year too, didn't he? And then he went to Spain and chilled for a while and then came back and crushed it. So, I don't know. I agree with you. At this point, I mean, I think you could put Tone and Wout pretty equal. So, I don't know. And then I think those are the three, though. I don't know if anyone else is... Can you think... Is there anyone else, like... Who else would you put there with him?
I mean, You always want.
You know what I would love to
like
see?
Swick's going to be up there, but he really hasn't seemed to.
And he's there for the first 2 laps, and I would love to see David Vanderpool.
Man, he's having. Yeah, that's what I put out there. I was like, if he were an only child,
we'd be talking about his great season. Absolutely. So,
all right.
I don't know. I don't know.
So you're sticking with Wout
right now, and when we do our official picks show, no, I'm sticking with Matthew.
You're sticking with Matthew.
I think this is Matthew's year.
Yeah.
When we do our official picks show, I might change that, but for now, if you ask me today, I'm picking that for Elite Men.
I'm kind of with you. I think I picked Vanderpool last year too, and I think I'm sticking with that. What do you think about? So here's the harder question:
How do you pick this?
elite women.
Oh man! If I had to pick right now, I got to pick Voss.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
That was supposed to be the hard one, and we both came to agreement on that one. A lot easier than the men, right? But there's so many names you could put in to potentially win this. I mean, it's crazy.
Was this was this a World Cup? I can't find it on the World Cup schedule. This was a World Cup last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep. I think it was the 5th one last year.
Okay.
I want to say something like that.
Because it was, because it has that huge, it's right up on the, it has that big seawall where they're kind of going down that boardwalk, and there would be those huge waves that come up and over them, and then it was, kind of this sketchy. I think sketchy was the word that we heard from everyone who raced it last year, to the point that almost
the off-camber drop thing. You mean?
Yeah. Where there are a lot
of those. I was actually, we're talking about being excited for Worlds. I was reading on the official website yesterday, and those are 2 things that they have slightly changed.
Okay.
They have actually moved the course, according to the website.
Yep.
They've moved it a little bit away from the seawall, so it's a little bit farther away to decrease the likelihood of water crashing over it, but also because they want there to be room on that side for fans to go over there if they want. And then that crazy drop-off thing, they made that, they said a little bit easier, so that it's not, you don't feel like you're, jumping off the edge of a cliff, I guess, to do that. But who knows? That might actually make it better. It might actually make it more rideable, and we might actually see some things that you just wouldn't be able to do before. Like we might see Vanderpool bomb that thing, or Voss or Neff or something like that, be able to just crush that thing now. So it actually might make it better, I think.
Yeah.
I can tell you
from a visual aspect. I'm kind of bummed that seawall isn't going to be, because those were some pretty cool pictures of those huge waves coming up as they're sort of like racing down that sidewalk.
Well, I think that it's the whole Louisville thing, right? Is it going to do that and then freeze?
Right.
And then you can't race there. What was the Worlds where the water actually came up and froze and they had to move the course around? It was like in the 90s.
Oh, man, I don't even know.
I can't remember where it was. Yeah, the water, like the seawater came up and froze, and it was like, you had 6 inches thick of ice on the course, and they had to actually reroute the course around this ice. So I think that's the main thing that they're worried about. So hopefully we'll still get to see that. It just won't be going onto the course.
Yeah.
It'll be going onto the fans. Even better, right? That might be even more entertaining. Could you see that? So.
All right. So, okay.
Is that all we're going to pick? We're not going to pick U23 and stuff.
Wait, was it it was not last year. This was that was 2017. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So 2017, 2018.
Right.
I
think it was the 5th World Cup, something like that.
All right. So, but here's, and I think one of our other questions sort of, let's listen to a voicemail, because this is going to get into it as well. So
well, if we go to the second part of Josh's question, is the technological development.
Okay.
And CX that we've already just talked about. It's shoes, Josh.
Yeah,
it's shoes.
That's it.
All right.
Yeah, we now have disc brakes. What do you think will be the next technological development in cyclocross? Shoes, and we're skipping all around. We're gonna get back to worlds, but wireless dropper post.
Oh, there you go. That could definitely be. Don't we need wired dropper posts though first in CX?
No.
How often do we see those?
No, because those are too heavy.
Yeah, true.
Get that wireless technology in there. Get a little button on your handlebars, and just dropping. Then
well, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Josh continues on. He's also the one that asked about the World's course. So there we go. We covered all the other thing about that course. I was looking at, there's like 6 bridges on that course, I think, according to the map. So that's going to be interesting to see. Yeah.
You're going to need a lot
of, it looks good. I like that course.
I need a lot of rock
there was
salt.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. So, dropper post and shoe technology. We answer that.
Yeah.
We're gonna play this voicemail from. Is it Doug?
Sure.
Yeah, because he's got some world's questions for us. So let's do that right now.
Hello, Cyclocross Radio TDTIE crew. This is Doug from Michigan. We are less than a month away from Cyclocross World Championships. And historically speaking, cyclocross at the elite level tends to be dominated by a few individuals. This is evident on the men's side, where outside from a long shot from Toon Aerts or maybe Stybar, we're looking at most likely a battle between Wout and NVDP again. On the women's side, though, there have been several riders with big wins over the past few weeks, including Sonny Kant, Yolanda Neff, Eva Lechner, Lucinda Brand, Christine Betsema, Mariana Voss, and Kate Compton. And this list doesn't include others like Lois Sells, Henry Verst, Ellen Van Looy, Nikki Vermeer, Ellen Noble, Katie Keogh, and others. So, on a scale of this is going to be the most wide open, exciting world championship ever, to Sonny Kant is just positioning yourself to three-peat, where would each of you rate this year's upcoming Women's Elite Championship at this point? Thank you.
Okay, and I think, a lot of what Doug was talking about in that second half was the women's field, and that's where we're at. So,
yeah.
If
we could compare.
Yeah, and he's basically going through the results from 2017, the last time this was a race was held there, that World Cup, and it's Sonny Kant won, Helen Wyman was second, Katie Keogh third, Eva Lechner fourth, Ellen Van Looy fifth. What do you think? I mean, Voss definitely wasn't there.
Yeah, I think there's so many names. Like I said, we haven't even mentioned Verst or Arzufi.
Brand.
Yeah. So, is Arzufi U23? What's she gonna do? I don't know. I can't remember for sure.
Let me check
if she is. Anyways, I know Verst is not is aged out of U23, so she'll be in it. I think
Arzufi's actually older than Verst. She's 25.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think. I mean, could remember Zolder when we had it was five women all together on the last lap?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. I think we could see that again for sure. I think that would be amazing. It's always the what people want to see and talk about most when it's over, right? Is when you got 5, 6, 7 riders all together on the last lap and you can't pick a winner. That's what puts you on the edge of your seat. And so I think we could certainly see that, with Voss, Verst, Compton, Keogh. The list goes on and on. I think that would be amazing. Or we could see someone, do something. We could see Neff break away from everybody and no one can touch her because of that drop. I don't know. So I mean, Neff created her own line at Ball this past weekend. Did you see that? I mean, there was that one drop, the drop where Kant crashed. I was calling it the Neff line when I was watching it. She had this like line that she was riding way up tight in the corner that very few other people were riding when she bombed that. The closest one to it was Kant, and that was the time she came through it and crashed. So, that's just the kind of skills Yolanda Neff brings, I think. So, I don't know, but that would be exciting to see too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
In some ways.
Yeah, Neff, and I think we have a Neff question later, so I want to put a pin in Neff just for a second and come back to her. My question for you about the elite women, I'm calling it. I'm not going to say in what order.
Okay.
So
You're gonna pick three?
This is some like parimutuel betting thing. Okay. I'm putting my money on a Dutch sweep.
Ooh.
So in some order.
No Sane Kant in the top three.
Nope. In some order, Voss, Verst, and Brand.
Yeah, see, Brand is a really good pick. Man, oh man. She has got power that is just unbelievable.
And that's the power course, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot, you have those like sort of sketchy drops and stuff, but other than that, it's as the enduro kids say, it's pedally.
Yeah, I mean that could certainly happen. I mean, yeah, that could certainly happen. I do think though, Sane Kant is going to do what she's doing now. She's going to go down to Spain, recollect herself, and come into Worlds ready for a fight. I think
for that theory that both Kant and Van Aert are peaking for Worlds that I've been slinging out there for a while. You have to think that Sane's in a better position to see that through.
Better than Wout, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that Kant is also, she won Worlds last year, and I think that over the years, she used to complain about the part-timers, as she would call them, coming in fit, and I think that that's another point that's going to come into our Neff conversation, and sort of taking over the sport at the end of the season as they ramp up for mountain biking or road or whatever. But I think that she's learned from that. And I think that you even see, U.S. World Cup Sane isn't the same as Sane right now.
Right.
Where it used to be, I think she was coming in a little hotter at the beginning of the season, and then, like a human being can't maintain that for the whole time. So I think that her buildup is more geared towards Worlds, and that especially this year, and I think that we started seeing that in the last week, just over the Christmas period, we started to see her kind of assert herself more. I think in like even Diegem where
that was great.
Yeah, and she just played that to a T. You could not, she's going up against road racers in that, and she out road raced all of them. She sat on for the last minute of the race, did not go out front, never went on front. About 30 seconds left in the race. She knew she had to get to the staircase before the sprint first, went out front, and just never looked back. I mean, it was just, you could not, if you were going to say, this is how you race this race, you conserve all your energy, you let everybody else attack, you let everybody else do all the work, you just sit in that top five and just chill out until the last minute, and then that's exactly, it's like perfect race.
If you'd have told me the first time they went through that left-handed off camber on that course, and if you watch Sane Kant go through that on the first lap, if you'd have told me right then that she was going to be the winner of the race, I'd have said, you're crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm with
you.
She
didn't look like she was anywhere near going to win that race. I mean, she took that high line, kind of came down, had to dismount before she wanted to. Learned, I think, by watching everybody else that the way for her to do it was to stay low and run and then cut that corner tight. But yeah, and then like you said, she makes it to the stairs first, knowing that she had to do that, and it looked to me like she almost caught everybody by surprise because she realized that, and maybe they didn't know when she was going to go or what. But yeah, she just kind of drops them all right there. And like you said, she led the race for 30 seconds. But guess what? It was the last 30 seconds.
Exactly.
And that's all you got to leave.
Nobody else led after her.
Right. Exactly. So I think that was one of her best races all season for sure.
All right. So who's winning? Who's winning for the elite women?
I'm going to pick Voss.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I think Brand could be there too. I think we could see Brand and Voss again, but I'm still going to pick Voss. I think.
Yeah, I say that we, instead of getting into the other, because we still want to do our Worlds preview. So let's leave the U23s and the junior men for a later date. We'll put them on the back burner.
Yeah.
All right. So we got that. So yeah, let's.
We got so many good questions.
Yeah, let's. Jeff had a question. Well, no, he didn't. He had thoughts. So here's
no questions, just thoughts, Jeff. Thank you.
One of his thoughts was, these are like, what was the Saturday Night Live sketch? Deep thoughts with. Yeah, so these are just deep thoughts. One of them is about Anthony Clark and Missy Giove being the same person, except different hair. And I'll just leave that for you all to mull over. But his first one is okay, and I am just going to read it. This is not me. This is Jeff. He says,
right.
I've yet to see Yolanda Neff and Chris Froome together in the same room at the same time, but I am willing to bet they learned their ride stylings from the same school of thought. The elbows out is not a pretty sight on either of them and makes it hard to watch. I can't
comment intelligently on Chris Froome because I don't watch that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just thought he stared at his stem a lot. Right. But as far as the elbows out goes, I think that this is something. It doesn't bother me, and I think it's something that you see a lot. You have to keep in mind that most of Yolanda Neff's life is riding a bike with flat bars.
Yes.
Wide.
And I think on her cross bikes,
they're super
her
wide.
Handlebars are a little bit wider than you'd normally see a lot of other riders use.
I mean, you see like the front on, and it looks like she's like should have some bags on the front of that thing and be.
She's got like 46 bars on there.
Yeah, and she should have like mustaches on there. Yeah, they're especially for as small as she is, those things are just like big honking bars, and
they are definitely wider than her shoulders, which is what the typical kind of school of thought is. So,
and she gets her elbows out, but I think that's just because that's your normal mountain biking position. I'm kind of the school of thought that if you're winning races, it doesn't really matter what you look like on the bike.
Yeah.
It obviously works for her. Here's something controversial that I'll throw out there because everybody's talking about Yolanda Neff. Talk about this mountain biker coming into cyclocross and really, started out with a bang with that 5th place in a World Cup, suffered a little bit in the Moore, and then just, gradually making her way onto the podium and then finally winning a race. And people are like, oh, why is the camera always on her? She's not at the front. And I'm like, well, this is entertainment, and she's a world-renowned superstar. Yeah, bigger than any, mountain biking is a lot bigger sport than cyclocross is. So a lot more people are going to be tuning in to see her. That's just kind of the reality of it. And
she's exciting to watch because she rides stuff that nobody else rides. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. Here is the things that you will see out there on social media from people who kind of know what they're talking about, that she was holding people up on some of those descents because her descending skills not as good maybe as some of the other riders in the field. And then also the other thing, which possibly in ball you could see, was it really faster for her to ride than to run on those instances over over the planks?
Oh, I think it was. I think it was still faster to ride, slightly faster to ride. I mean, you could argue, is the risk reward worth it? When you ride, when you hop those, I think it's still slightly faster to ride, of course, because a lot of people, they watch the speed over the barriers, and that's very similar. But then you have to remount. That's the thing.
Always remount.
And that's where you always drop another second or something, I think. So I still think it was faster to ride, and she can do it and is really good at it, and didn't even, I don't even think she got sideways once while she was hopping those. She just does it like it's nothing. So
if you go to cyclocross television on YouTube and look for my Ruts and Guts video for the men's Ruts and Guts race, I think it is that is the best example of this. Curtis White is one of the fastest runners I've seen in a cyclocross race. Like, he gets off his bike and he looks like he looks like a sprinter. I mean, he is so darn fast. And so at Ruts and Guts, right before the finish, there are these big they almost look like telephone poles. These big logs, steps. There's about 3 or 4 of them that are easily rideable, that a lot of the field was riding. Curtis was dismounting every time, and he was passing people. Right. Like, he would get off and he would run past people on this feature, but every time he'd get like half a bike length, and he'd remount, and then everyone who rode, be it Hyde or whoever else, would pass him and get a gap on them.
They're already on the bike and they've got momentum, right? He has to rebuild that momentum up.
And he knew it, and he, I talked to him afterwards. He knew it, but he still felt it was faster for him, which, was not a bad. And it turned out that actually between him and he was racing Powers at the end, and he was able to, catch him at the line. So it wasn't, I'm not second guessing his decision, but if you just watch that video, it's such a great example of, this part right here from point A to point B is definitely faster to run, but it's when you go from point B to point C that you're losing that advantage. I think that's the same thing.
I think you hit on a good point there. You said it's faster for him. For Yolanda Neff, it could very well be the same way. She doesn't do as much dismounting, running of barriers, and remounting as most other cross racers, right? So for her, staying on the bike and riding it, even if it's the same speed as other cross racers, it might be a second faster for her specifically, right? No matter what anyone else is doing, this is the fastest way she can get through that. So that's what you do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You're absolutely right, and I think that plays into another point I want to make. Before I said that, it actually reminds me of Annika Longvad when she showed up and was racing some cyclocross and raced the World Cups in the U.S. When the first time she got to the base of Mount Crumpet, it was like she was walking on lava. Like, just the disdain on her face of, really, I have to run up this hill. I was like, it's like, I don't do this. I ride.
Right.
So I think you're absolutely right there. And I think the other thing, there was a little criticism about maybe her descending skills. She was holding people up on some of this. Again, just like with her arm position, she rides a mountain bike. And she is able to bomb things on a mountain bike. And there are things that you can do with a mountain bike that you can't do with a cyclocross bike. So I think a little bit of this is exactly what you're talking about with her running as well. It's time spent in the discipline. And if she was training on a cross bike and training on those conditions more than I'll bet she is, she's going to be railing those descents as well. It's not like, she's a pretender and doesn't really have these skills. I think it's more, and we even heard it from I remember talking to Ellen Noble in Rochester, and she had a couple slips out of turns, and she's like, it's just weird going back to cyclocross tires because they don't handle the same as mountain bike tires.
Right.
You know, and making that adjustment. You know, you're sort of keyed in at a very high level of taking, you know, you can turn the front of a mountain bike. You can actually turn your handlebars, you know, and make your bike go in a different direction. You can't do that
and
on
the tire will
bike.
grab. Yeah.
So I think that that criticism, I understand that may have been happening in a race or two, but I bet the more that Neff is on a cyclocross bike, the less that will be a criticism, and the more it will be like, oh, damn, she's gotten really fast on these descents too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think the argument that someone's holding other people up, as long as they're not trying to purposely hold people up, I don't think you can really. That's hard to go there, because I mean, then you say, well, anytime anyone stumbles or missteps or does anything or has to, they're not as proficient as one thing or element of the course as somebody else. Oh, they're holding them up. They shouldn't be. That's all. No. I don't buy any of that. I think as long as she's riding honestly and she's riding as best as she can ride, you can't. I mean, it's like saying, well, if somebody crashes, well, what are they? They shouldn't be there. They're holding everybody up. Yeah, because they crashed. You know. So I don't know. I think as long as she's not purposely doing things, she's riding things. Again, I'll go back to that descent where she's riding that inside line that nobody else was riding. I think she's a joy to watch and really exciting. And I always, when they pan through the start row at Ball and I saw that she was on second row, I was like, oh man, this is going to be
right.
This is going to be tough, right?
Back. You know, and
she's not starting from fifth row this time. It's going to be a whole different scene, and it was. So
that's the other part of this. Is that I will take your complaints with a huge grain of salt that somebody's holding you up ever. Because if you feel like you're faster than them, why are you behind them?
Yeah. And it's right. You honestly feel the best cyclocross riders in the world could not stay on Yolanda Neff that race. So if you feel like she's holding you up and then she goes and wins the race by a decent margin, how much was she really holding you up? You know, come on.
Let's check in from Belgium. We have a special caller.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Sonny Gilbert, friend of the show, friend of the network, checking in from I guess he's back in the U.S. now, but checking in from Belgium and giving us a little insight on what it's like to start in a Belgian race. So let's listen to this voicemail.
Hey Bill, this is Sonny Gilbert. I just got back from racing in Belgium at First Period, and during one of my races, I lined up next to one of the Canadian riders, and she leaned over to me and she said, okay, so what's the deal? We go on green and not on a whistle or a gun or anything like that. And I remember back to the first time that I raced in Belgium, and I was shocked by two things at a European start. One, yes, no whistle, no gun, usually a green light, or at a World Cup, the heartbeat. But also, when you're lining up to the start line, no one is orderly one by one in the grid. We all smash up against the starting line, against each other. So I wanted to ask you if you had any thoughts on that and why it was so different. Thanks. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year too. Bye.
All right.
Sonny.
I
just love Sonny.
Thank you for that call. It's kind of funny with there was actually somebody was thrown off at nationals with the green light.
The green lights, yeah.
I forget who it was.
Well, and I got to say, because I was around the start line for many, many races, and the officials, every single race that I was at the start line for, the officials made sure they told the group, you are starting on the light. I mean, that was part of their pre-race ritual was saying, you are starting on the green light. There will be no whistle.
Yep.
So
I think Sarah, and she did an awesome job down there. She gave the same spiel to every field, and it was basically, if you hear a whistle, it means that somebody has false started and we need to regrid everybody.
Exactly.
You're not going to hear a whistle. And she just went through the same thing with every group, and then it was kind of funny with the single speeders when there was like 577 of them. And she was like, you are going on the light. If you hear a whistle, it means that there's been a false start. She's like, please, for the love of everything good, let's not have a false start in this race because I do not want to regrid all of you.
Yeah, so they did a great job with that, I think, at U.S. Nationals. But that's just the way it's been, right? I mean, one thing, those starting lights are more expensive than a whistle, right? So there is that whole thing. And, the lights have tradition. We're starting to see more start lights, I think.
Well, it's
right?
it's more fair.
Yes. Yeah.
And we were talking about it actually one of the days, Scott and Julie Herman and I, while we were announcing, I was sort of going through the kind of history of it, which I'm sure we've talked about as well, and about the New England secret start. Do you know what that is?
Remember that? No.
Yeah. Okay. So,
well, maybe I do. I just don't know.
Yeah, you'll
by
know
that name.
when I tell you. So why I say it's unfair is if you go on a whistle, it is the way it has historically been done until officials and riders actually complain and officials figured out this other method. Is what will happen is that everybody on the front row or maybe the front two rows has a huge advantage because the official will stand off to like the right or the left, right at the first row of the grid, and they'll give the 30-second warning. There's not a countdown because that's completely unfair because then everybody's just leaving on one, and so we don't do that. So it's always everything's always within 30 seconds. It can be anywhere 30 seconds. It's going to be a surprise somewhere in that 30 seconds. And what happened, the savvy racers, all they're doing is watching the whistle and the lips.
Yeah,
and
watching for the big inhale.
Yeah, and even if the whistle is already in the mouth, in the lips, they're watching the cheeks, and as soon as they go out, they're going.
Yeah.
So they have that visual cue, which is the advantage, and then they're taken off. Just that microsecond, but it's still it's an advantage. What the secret start was, what the officials started doing is they would say 30 seconds, and then they would walk to the back of the grid.
Yes.
So then
I was just going to say that.
There's no visual cues, and then the whistle's just coming. And it's the same for everybody. Everybody has the same, the same disadvantage, if you will.
Right.
The light system takes all of that away. You're just queuing off of the lights. Even in the World Cups, as Sonny talks about, you have the little heartbeat that's going on. So you basically know when it's coming, which I love. I think that
I do too. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it just builds that tension, and then you're just going on the lights, and that's what they did at Nationals, and then that's always what happens in these Belgian races. But Scott, the other part of it, which we've heard about before too, is that you can paint as many lines as you want on a starting grid, and we're very good. I don't know if it's our Puritan roots or whatever in the U.S. about staying in those lines and in those boxes, and even you'll hear about the stories about, these, in my Masters race, this guy figured he needed to be in the second row. It's just like busting through everybody, and everybody gets pissed off, and they're getting, people are touching each other, and it's just like, you'll get letters and all this kind of stuff, and people want to be disqualified. But then Europe,
it's normal.
Yeah, it's just
it's just the way they do it. Yeah.
You're basically you have your front row, and then they call everybody else, and then it's you talked about somebody was like, oh, it didn't like Yolanda Neff's elbows out. That's basically what you need to do to keep your spot.
Yeah, I mean the thing is a lot of riders will come up between the two rear wheels of the row in front of them. For people that are wondering what we're talking about, they'll be between two riders. Still, technically, I guess 8 across. This is my argument against doing this. Is it's the difference between cyclocross and say a crit is it's in the rules 8 across, right? So this tends to skew that a little bit. I understand it's still technically 8 across, and it's not going to change. I get all that. But I think it would just be nice if everyone would just maintain a row. You're not really losing much by being on someone's wheel. I get all that. And you can easily move around their wheel once the start happens. Well, maybe not easily, but you can. I don't know. It's like you said, Bill, it's just the way they do it over there. We've done it over here. And maybe it's because our officials over here are a little bit more I've heard officials at the start of races say, do not put yourself between the row in front of you, and they won't allow it. They'll call riders out and ask them to move off of that. So, because sometimes you see it and someone's front wheel is basically equal with the row in front of them's rear wheel. Right? I've seen it that bad before. Right? I
know there was, I think it was Stellenbosch for the World Cup mountain bike race that Sam Gaze, New Zealander, won, and he was staged he was supposed to be staged like third or fourth row or something like that. And I know Anton Cooper was I think in the first row or first one in the second row. He was like, yeah, how'd Sam get all the way up there, to get in that front group? Before it even started, he was next to me.
Yeah, exactly.
He was supposed to be like 3 rows back. So that's just sort of what happens. My favorite story, and I'm sure I've told this before, Joe Dombrowski, who's a road racer for EF, when he used to race cyclocross, I was asking him about, going with the U.S. team and racing in the World Cups, and I think when he was a U23, and just the difference between the American races and the international races, and he was like, yeah, I got kicked, I got the back of my bike was bumped, I got slapped in the head. He was like, and that was just in the starting grid.
Right. Right. The other thing to it too is it's like, in a way, people have earned the right to start where they're, and by pushing yourself up in there, I don't know. I just wish we didn't have to, govern behavior. It's like, just, you're supposed to be in the next row. Let's just keep it like that. Let's do it, try and be as honest as possible, and not force, people the officials to try and govern your behavior. Let's just be good sports about it at the start. This is why I really don't like the whole, pushing your bike in and starting 9. There's been several instances where there's, riders have tried to start 9 in a row, especially the front row. And that just drives me crazy when people do that. It's like, come on, own it, own your spot, own your start spot. Be a good sport and start where you're supposed to start, and let's go. And it makes the start safer too.
Yeah,
the start is a dangerous spot or point in a cyclocross race. Let's keep that as safe as possible. And it's a very short time, and it's a long race. You'll have a chance to make up that half wheel length many times over the course of the race. So
yeah,
there you go,
for sure. But you have to give a little like sympathy to the thought process for cyclocross, especially. These are professional athletes. They want to continue being professional athletes, and the difference between making it up in even a mountain bike race or a road race is that, look at Zolder, look at Namur. Mm-hmm. Look at the first 30 seconds of both of those races. In Zolder, they have that stupid 180 right after the start that I don't know. I don't think there's been a year that it's just become a standstill right there.
Somebody gets hung up there, for sure.
Yeah, and then everybody just stops. So your first 10, 15, 20 riders make it through, and then those are the ones who are going to compete for the race, unless you're just a Superman and can catch back up. And everybody else is already a minute back, 30 seconds into the race. Mm-hmm. Namur you always have the same thing. You have that huge sprint up the Citadel, which is awesome. I love it. And you do have people moving up. You can see people moving up on that uphill grind, but then it gets to that little ramp up that they put down over these steps
right.
up to the woods, and it's that first person that gets off their bike, right? Like the pace slows to the point where somebody has to dismount, and then that's it. It's game over for everybody behind that person because they all have to get off their bikes.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, whoop, done.
Right. And I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think I don't know how much of a difference one row. I mean, I know it's going to make a big difference.
I don't think it makes any difference. I think that people get so kind of stressed out over, oh geez, if I'm not in this first 15 spots by the time we get to this choke point, you know, my race is done.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. Let's just, if we keep it like organized, don't allow that, keep it more organized. Because I don't want somebody to get injured. You know, you could have a season-ending injury right there or something. Let's just try and keep it as safe as we can. And you know, like the famous. I was at one race and Cody Kaiser was like, I think row 4 or something, and there was 9 in the front row, and he's like, I think Dot was the official, and he's like, hey, Dot, we got 9 in the front row, and every time we got that, there's a crash. I mean, that was his concern, right? He's like, let's not crash on the start, guys. You know, we got 9 sitting here. So, and she corrected it. So that's just my biggest thing is let's keep the start as safe as possible.
Yeah, I think I was at a race too. Dan Chabanov sort of did the same thing where you had, and I won't name the rider, but somebody who had success in the past and believed somehow that gave him, you know, like this legacy spot farther up into the grid. And I think Dan even raised his hand and like called him out. He's like, he's not supposed to be there.
Right.
So they, you know,
and that's good. I think riders calling that stuff out is good. Let's keep doing that. I wish more other riders would do that in other forms of cycling with things like doping.
Yeah, right.
So I think until riders start policing each other, it's difficult to change. So I applaud that.
Yeah. All right. Where should we go to? Oh, let's get some of Elliot's. Always good for some questions. I'm gonna peruse through Elliot.
Wait, Elliot who? Elliot. Oh,
Caldwell.
that Elliot.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Letter number 4. It gives shouts out to all of my animals, which is nice.
Just
Thank
kidding.
You. He's asking about Evie Richards not being on the World's team and sort of looking at the U23 field. I think that we put that one. We save that. We're going to save that one for our U23
picks
preview. A more interesting question, which I think has come up already, is that, you know, I already, you know, made my call for the women's side where it's going to be a Dutch sweep, you know, and I think that we see that up and down the women's field where this is somewhere that Belgium is not dominating, and he's asking if this is a problem for their cyclocross, you know, for the federation and for the leadership, and I think it is, and I think that it is attributable to work that other countries have done, a lot of work that the U.S. has done in building up women's cyclocross, and that it's become popular, and now it's finally getting to the point where there is a monetary stake in it, in that the ratings for the women's race, if you look at them, are coming right up to where, for viewership, where they are for the men's race, because more people than in the past are tuning into these women's races, and I think that's going to keep growing. And the problem that they're having, that Belgium especially is having, is that the men's races, viewership's really falling off, you know, like to tens and hundreds of thousands of viewers less this year in the past. You know, we can call it the Vanderpool effect or whatever else. And the women's side is becoming more popular. So
look at the field sizes too, Bill.
Oh yeah, and the field size.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's evident there too.
Yeah, so just to finish up my long rambling thought is that I think in the past they didn't care as much about developing women racers, and it wasn't really a priority. But now that it's coming into, this is something that sponsors are going to start looking at if they're not already. This is something that has TV implications. I think that, Belgian cycling is finally like, we need to start developing our women's athletes a lot better.
Yeah, I think other areas of the world have kind of forced this, right? With the stuff like that Helen Wyman's doing with the equal pay stuff here in the United States. I think this has become a forced issue that they are going to be forced into dealing with. That being said, everybody talks about, Belgium, they're dropping off and everything. They still have won the elite men and the elite women at Worlds for the last, how many years in a row now? 2 or 3, right? So I think that has kind of given them maybe a little bit of a false sense of, everything's still okay. Kind of a feeling. But if you look, you got Sanne Kant, of course, but what women are developing in Belgium that are coming up that are going to fill in that spot, once Sanne Kant is no longer competitive there.
You ready for this? So this is putting it into perspective. So right now, as of today, the rankings in the world, Sanne Kant is first. She is Belgian.
Right.
Vos and Worth, both from the Netherlands. Katie Keogh is fourth, U.S. Fifth is Brand, also from the Netherlands. Low Cell. So your next Belgian is sixth.
Yeah.
Next Belgian after that is Ellen Van Looy, 11th. So to your point, we have Sanne Kant, who I know we all still think is a kid. She's 29.
Right.
Low Cells is 34. Ellen Van Looy is 39.
Yeah.
All right. So that's 3 in the top 11.
Right.
Next Belgian, 23rd.
And who is it?
Laura Verdenschot.
Verdenschot. That's who I was going to say. She's probably the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
Right, of developing Belgian women.
Right. She's 23.
Yeah.
But as far as keep on going down, oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Verschuren.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
but
she's
not real young. Well, how old is she?
29.
Yeah. So same as Sanne Kant.
And she's 75th in the world.
Yeah.
So that's a huge drop. And then you have at 87th, Karen Verstraeten. Then you go to 96th. And all of these, Verstraeten is 28. Belaert is 22. So she's your first true U23 racer, and she's 96th in the world.
Yep.
So they have some work to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I think this is where we could see this huge, especially from the United States, where you could see a huge increase in not just participation, but audience, people being interested and wanting to see the young American women come into the scene. And it could really become a popular thing and a popular part of the sport that Belgium just kind of loses out on because they just don't, they're not going to be, maybe not going to be competitive there. So, I think it's certainly something that they're behind on for sure. I don't think there's any question about it. And could it come back to really hurt them? Yeah, it could. I think it really could.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why the ratings or the viewership at least is growing for the women. The same kind of thing that we talk about with the men, where we want to get rid of that stranglehold that Belgium has on the sport and make it a more global sport that they fight tooth and nail and why would you blame them? I mean, as we've said before, they have the best local series in the world. 2 of them,
right? Sure,
Super Prestige and DVV. They can wake up and drive an hour or so and be at the race,
right?
They don't have to really fly anywhere or do anything like that. But we'd like to get them out of that comfort zone and move around. And if you look at the women's field, you have the Dutch, who are now invested in it heavily. Of course, they have been in the past, but still,
Mm-hmm.
you have two of your top riders in the world are Italians. So now you have the whole Italian fans that are getting behind Arzuffi and Lechner. And then you have the U.S. And then you have Great Britain with Nikki Bramier having an amazing year. Helen Wyman, Richards, who's injured. You have Harriet Hannon, who's coming up and did well in the Helen 100. You have all of these stars out there from other places.
The other thing I think we're starting to see more and more each year, and this could become a problem too, with you talking about the series, is have you noticed the riders that are being pulled over to EKZ?
Yeah.
That's getting more and more riders every single year, and I think we could really start to see some good. I mean, there's good battles going on in the EKZ series right now, but I think that could really become a player in the next few years. For sure. So,
yeah,
that's just another.
Oh, yeah.
Which is good. I think it'd be awesome. I think it would be great. I wish we had a series like that in the U.S.
Yeah. For sure. I think that, yeah, well, it's just going to come full circle. I mean, Switzerland used to be the
used to dominate.
Dominant factor in where all the races were, and maybe it's
people think Belgium has always been the dominant country in cyclocross. That's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. And it changed once, and there's no reason why it can't change again.
I just wonder if some of that has to do, again, something I harp on a lot is the Olympics. The Swiss, it's not like the Swiss became bad bike racers. They look at from Nino Schurter down, they dominate in Yolanda, they dominate in mountain biking, and I think that they get a lot more support for that. So that may have been where that changed.
That kind of pulled them away from cross a little bit. Yeah, I think there's probably something to that for sure.
All right, I'm poaching some of Elliot's other questions. This is one where we had some other calls on Twitter and elsewhere to discuss. I think it was Velo News who had this. How can I say this? This still needing to be developed story. they kind of threw out there about. Are the World Cups good for the U.S.? And,
right.
Just to read what Elliot has on this, he says, "How big a loss would it be for U.S. cyclocross if we lost the World Cups? And if we could only keep one, which should it be? Or if we could add another race to make it more worthwhile for Euros to come over, which current race should we add? My list: Charm City, Cincy, Gloucester, or maybe a Canadian event." So I think the first question, are the World Cups somehow bad for U.S. cyclocross?
No. I think it would be a huge loss if we lost the World Cups. I think that would be bad.
I think the arguments that I saw out there from a promoter standpoint, from a UCI promoter standpoint, and this was Chris Auer, who promotes Charm City, who's my our partner in the Parkway series. And I think that this is something that he just has experience in, because his date and the Trek date were always
similar.
They were fighting for the same weekend a lot, and it turned out that, for whatever reason, when it came down to who's going to be a C1, C2, even though Charm City had been out there longer, Trek became the C1. So I can see where he feels like he's been in this battle, and his point is that it takes away prime weekends where nothing else can happen as far as UCI races go.
Mm-hmm.
And that we have a very busy U.S. UCI schedule. I understand that argument. I understand that those are prime weekends, and as much as we want to say cyclocross is supposed to be raced now when it's dreary and miserable out and nobody wants to be outside, the fact of the matter is your biggest races, your biggest attendance are the summer races.
They happen when the weather is nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Like people want to go. It's September. People want to go hang out in a park and have fun. That's kind of it. It's people want to dream about doing it in December, but the reality is it's more fun in September.
They just don't show up.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's why this kind of battle for those weekends is out there. At the same time, I still think, and maybe this means, that my own race that I'm involved with has to be put under a microscope, but I still think that we need to take a hard look at who is a UCI race in this country. And, I on one hand...
You mean just a UCI in general or a C1 specifically?
No, just a UCI race in general.
Okay.
Do we even have too many UCI races? And I understand, Adam Meyerson's argument that we are too big of a country to have just one C2 a weekend or one C1 a weekend without a C2 somewhere else. I get that.
Right.
I think the counter to that is we don't have the athletes to support two events on a weekend. Even though we're a huge landmass and it is not cost effective for West Coasters to always be traveling the East Coast if that's where the races are, I still think that there is some inequity when you look at a European race and you look at a C2 and it's like, Lauren Swick.
You've got more higher ranking riders in the C2 there than in the C1 here.
Right. Lauren Swick is getting, like 10 points for getting 8th or whatever it is. I know that's not the right points. And you have somebody who goes to a race that only 15 people are in the UCI elite men's field and they're getting twice as many points basically because they showed up. Is that fair?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I agree with you. I don't think we have the rider. I completely agree. I think Adam has a point. I understand what he's saying. It's the traveling is really hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially for no money.
Experience.
There's no money.
Yeah, especially for no money. Not only no money, but it's costing you money. But I don't think. I think when you look at the top 100, 150 riders in the world, I think you see some inequity there. I do, and I think a lot of it is because of what we were talking about, Bill, because of situations like you just explained. So I think, and I think that it's the whole C1, C2 thing too is I've always been an advocate of we need in the U.S. we should have a really strong C2 calendar. I think that's where we are right now. If we had a really strong, really big, good races that are still C2s, sprinkled with some C1s, I think that's the best situation for the U.S. I don't think more C1s is the answer. And, like you said, maybe slightly fewer UCI races in general would be a good thing for a little while.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. And I think that I think for ulterior motives, but the UCI agrees with that as well, and that's why they've put in these tougher restrictions,
these requirements
for being a C1. I can tell you that for the we did discuss that a few weeks ago about whether those requirements that were put in this year are going to affect races next year. They are not. So they're
okay.
All
good.
of these C1 races that occurred this year are not expected to meet those requirements for next season. So I think that we will see if they want to return. I think we're going to see all of the U.S. UCI C1 races back. After that, going forward, it may be a different story, but at least for this.
So they basically have 1 year to try and meet those requirements for the following year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's way more fair.
Yeah.
Than
So nobody got dinged this season.
Yeah.
But not to get too far off path, because I did, have an initial point here just about, that was the first argument for why we, maybe the World Cup's hurt because it takes away race dates from other, smaller promoters who want to have UCI races. And then the second argument that Ryan Trebone put out there was like, and he basically said, if I had the money that it takes, that these organizations are spending on World Cups, he believes that, that money would be better spent for a national series for the U.S. Mm-hmm. And my response to that is, of course it would. Not better spent, but of course, if you had that money, you could build an amazing U.S. series. Heck right. Yeah. I mean, we're talking between Jingle Cross and Trek. I'm going to guesstimate over $500,000 up to $1 million that is being, expended to put these events on.
I think that's probably accurate.
For sure. Oh, we could have a killer series for that. The problem is, what is the incentive for all of those sponsors to do that and not be on the world stage? I mean, that's
None.
You're taking money that doesn't exist and moving it over there. We talked about Belgian cycling, wanting to promote more women because now there's a monetary reason to do it. It's not altruism. Well, you have the same thing here. Exactly. Nobody's going to jump into this national series if the audience isn't there, and the audience isn't there. But for a World Cup, it is. It's still global. Right. You still have the whole world coming in. And my goodness, we have this here. Why we would want it to go away, I don't know what the argument is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, it pulls in attention. It pulls it draws the attention of non-cyclists even, right? Having a World Cup. And that's, part of broadening what we're trying to do and broadening the scope of cyclocross in the U.S. I still think it's doing that. And I think it needs, for instance, I was talking to the guys doing the parking at Trek this year. They're like, so is this kind of a, what is this race? And I explained it to them. I'm like, yeah, both world champions are here. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh man, I get off at this time. I'm going to go watch some of that. I'm like, yeah, good. You should.
Yeah.
And that's what a World Cup brings, right? That you're not going to get from any other thing. So I think, yes, why would you not want to? So what about a third? I think if we could if there could be one in Canada, I think that would be amazing.
I think it should, and I think it has to be a World Cup, and I think that that's something that the UCI would want because, again, it's their series, so they want to grow it, and because of that, and because of these restrictions on UCI series, I don't think we can have like a DVV or a Super Prestige race in the U.S. because they're maxed out on the number of races they are allowed to have. I think it's 8 in their series. And they're not going to sacrifice one of those races, go down to 7, so Cincy can be...
They're too entrenched.
Yeah. Cincy can be a DVV race. As much as that would be amazing to see.
Yes.
I just don't, and there was always talk about that. I know that Brooke had talked about it in the past, about making Cross Vegas possibly a Super Prestige race or something like that. But it just seems like it was never able to happen, and I couldn't see that happening again. The only other thing I think that could happen, and maybe this is still a draw for Reno. Reno's in a position, I know I'm going all over the place, but Reno's in a position now where they're looking for a weekend. That's kind of and this kind of plays into what Chris Auer was saying for the first one, that those weekends are really hard to come by. They're trying to find a weekend that they can land on without Interbike. It doesn't make sense for them to have a Wednesday race. But if you had something like Reno, which has always been, especially when it was Vegas, it was a big money race, like a big purse race. If you had that and you had it as a C1, I think you then have the incentive for these racers to stay a week on one side or the other, race a double weekend, and then they can get 6 races on their trip. And I think that well, they can do 7 if they want, because they have 3 Jingle Cross, 2 Trek, and you put another weekend in there, and you offer. That's a ton of points on the line.
Right.
That gets you. You look at Matthew Vanderpool. For as great a season as he has had, he's still making up ground in the World Cups. because he didn't
got
come to
two
the US.
zeros.
Yeah.
Right. So if you had a third, like if you could have a Canadian race,
Yeah.
and had a third, you'd have to come. You'd have to. And I don't know. Is that a good thing? I don't know. But I think the problem with Reno is it's so far.
Yeah.
So I think that would make that tricky. At the same time, I think we need a West Coast C1. I know Sacramento is a great race. That's a C2, and I think there should be a C1 on the West Coast throughout. At least there's one for the entire season. I don't think is too much to ask right now with the state of cyclocross in the U.S. So I think having Reno, be on the West Coast and still be a C1 on a weekend would be a good thing too.
Yeah.
So,
and another thing that I think goes along with this, and I talked about it I've talked about it a lot. I think I talked about the gravel lot bumps on here as well.
It's all a blur.
It is all a blur. is that this notion of World Cups in the U.S. that I think the problem about having them year after year is that we now take it for granted that it's going to be here this year, and then people don't necessarily go because they figure, well, I went last year or I'll go next year. I think that's the type of thing that if you haven't gone to one of these races, either Trek or Jingle Cross, you have to go. If you're a cyclocross fan, you don't have to go, but you should make that one of your sacrifice a race weekend. You can even go up there and race or just watch. It's worth going. We talk about supporting the sport. That's a huge thing. I talk about it with going. Like, this is where I sort of went on the spiel before about, being able to see all of the C1 races this week was huge for me. And I know you've done that in the past too. And it's really eye-opening. And I think if you love the sport, just being able to see how people do cyclocross differently than they do it in your backyard is so much fun. And it's an eye-opener. And you get to race, if you bring your bike, you race against different people that you don't race every weekend. And there certainly are different styles of racing throughout the U.S. And it's just, I think as a fan, as much as I don't want to blow up anybody's local series, because I think those are important as well, I think getting out of your comfort zone, saving a couple $100 and going somewhere else to race is huge. And that will continue to grow the sport.
Absolutely. Completely agree. And I think, the more do a tour, try and get around and see. I encourage people all the time, come on, it's not that big a deal. They have this idea that it's somehow something more than what they're used to. And it is in the sense, like you said, of riding against different riders, but it's still just a cross race. You will be very familiar with how things work, right? Yeah. There's still parking and you get ready and, there's a start area and there's registration and it all works the same way and you can figure it out and don't be intimidated. I had a lady I think it was at Indy this year, ask me, I'm standing watching the race and she was cheering for someone, her kid or something. She's like, and we started chit-chatting. She's like, well, who are you here to watch? And I was like, I'm here to watch everybody. What are you talking about? But this idea that if you don't have a friend or a family member that's racing, why would you come watch this?
Yeah.
It's like, because it's awesome. Are you kidding me? This is great to watch. So we need, like you said, Bill, we need just more spectators. Just come and spectate. It's still very fun, especially at a World Cup. It's a blast.
And that's as far as like the C1s go. I think that's also on us, and something that I'm hoping to help change is that we need those stories. And once we can get people invested in our top riders and there are stories to tell, like there have been in the past, and I talked about this earlier this week just with when Jeremy had Behind the Barriers out, it was still great. Everybody should go watch this season because it's really well done. But in the past, he did such an amazing job building stories in the U.S. that we all wanted to follow. And then you were a Tim Johnson guy or a Ryan Trebone or a Powers or a Katie Compton, or you just sort of you knew all of the players, and it was almost this little. It was like sports. It's it's why ESPN exists. It had those storylines that we we need to build up again. But just one last note on what you're saying about it's just like racing anywhere else. The thing about going to a UCI race, if you are a amateur racer, and this happened a lot. I had friends in the Mid-Atlantic who did this, and they'd go. And I think it was actually Cincy when it was the 3-day, they would go out there and they were a little nervous about going to like this UCI race. But, they're just racing in the 3-4 race or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they would come back and they were like, their fields were smaller than at home. Like, right. Yeah, it's just a regular race. We have more people racing here than they do. I mean, it's an awesome race. And you go there because it's a fantastic course that you haven't seen before, and that's kind of what you're racing for, that experience.
Right.
But it's not like they're building different cyclocross racers there.
No, but you're, even if you had a slightly smaller field though, but it's pulling top talent from like a lot of places too, because it's UCI. Just because it's UCI, so even though it's smaller, it's still you get an idea of where you are in that kind of group, I think too. So it's always get out to some of those UCI races. They're really fun. Or go to the series next to you.
Yeah,
go check out some of those races. Definitely a fun thing to do. So.
All right, we are going to do quickly, I'm just going to run through this one last letter because we're getting up here on an hour 30, which is, I think, where we should probably end this. And then we will play our last voicemail and I think call it a show.
End on that. Okay.
Yes, we will end on that. Our friend of the show, Scott Herman, was asking about all of the transfers happening for cyclocross and also for mountain biking. For mountain biking, I there's just so many. I can't even go into all of them. I will tell you, Kate. We already talked about Kate Courtney a little bit. She's on Scott SRAM now. That was a big one. Yolanda Neff, we already know, is on Trek. That was a big one. But as far as the cyclocross ones, this is what I will tell you. I will read these, and they may or may not make sense. But what I will tell you is that the who helped me come up with this list, I just put it out on Twitter that, hey, what are the is there a list anywhere? It could just help me with everybody who's switched teams for cyclocross. And the Cyclocross 24 is at Cyclocross 24. Definitely follow them. They are going to get you all of your results, all your standings, and they came up with a lot of this information. And then VeloFacts, at VeloFacts also was the other site that was like really cool and responded with some of the response. So if you're a cyclocross nerd and you're not following those two accounts, I would definitely do that. But Scott, I'm going to quickly go through this. So there's the new Roompot team with his captains, Stan Godry, it's in parentheses, not professional, and Bohm. Is that Lars Bohm? Who's Bohm?
Maybe. Or is it Boom the place?
I don't think so. Creafin. This is the team that Eb Luckner was new on this season, but now also includes Tim Merlier, Victor Bosmans, and Verstraeten. There's the new CCC squad that Mariana Voss is now a part of, and also Inge Vandehayden. Sort of mountain bike / cyclocross. Lars Forster moved from BMC to Scott SRAM. Talita de Jong was not on a team and is now on Chevelmere. Sophie de Boer has her as Park Hotel Valkenburg. I feel like there's another name to that too.
Oh, like a third.
Yeah,
third part.
And then Alicia Frank was on Marlux, is now on this Experza Foot Logics team. And then Thomas Joseph was on Marlux, and then he's on Tartaletto Isorex. Oh, and remember our Ryan, was it Ryan Kapp? Remember that guy that we figured should be from the Midwest?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he just got signed to a team too. But
It's always a crazy time of the year for cyclocross.
Yeah, I forgot. I wanted to point that one out because I felt like it should have been like, some U.S. team, but it's not. I still feel like he needs to be our adopted U.S. rider, much like our favorite Canadian rider.
Right,
Tyler.
we need a team with him and Tyler. Yeah. Right, he needs to join TCCX. There we go, TCCX. Oh, Tyler. We should have Skyped Tyler. We will next time.
No, we should definitely chat with them. So, Scott.
Yes.
Before we have one more voicemail, which I'm gonna let that end the show. That's
gonna take us out.
That's gonna play us out.
All right.
But before that, anything else we need to talk about? And if not, B, what do you got coming up? What's the Bike Shop CX up to? And where can people get a hold of you?
Well, let's take care of that first. You can get a hold of me at Bike Shop CX on Twitter and Instagram. And then, of course, we answer viewer questions on our show, tech questions mostly. But send us any questions. We'll answer those. And that email address is just bikeshopshow@gmail.com. And you can, send us your tech question and we'll get that on the show. And coming up, we got a show we're recording next week, so we will have a new episode coming up. I don't want to release the topic yet, but yeah, look for that soon. We took a little bit, kind of a week off here, and yeah, we got a lot of other good stuff coming up in 2019. Thank you to all the Wide Angle Podium subscribers. That's just awesome. So yeah, there you go, Bill.
All right, and talking about Wide Angle Podium, go to wideanglepodium.com. Please become a member. Check out all of the shows. You can, what I would ask is, subscribe to those shows. Also go to Apple Podcasts and rate them 5 stars and then leave a review. We have not had a review for this show for Cyclocross Radio in quite some time. It's been a couple months. So chime in there. Always love getting those reviews. And, we love to hear from you. And that, by doing a review, doing a rating, that kind of sparks the Apple Podcast algorithm to start recommending the podcast to other places.
Start paying attention to you again. Yeah.
Do the same for Bike Shop CX. For me, you can get in touch with me if you had any questions like we had for this show. You can send them to feedback@cxhairs.com. Also on Instagram and Twitter, I am at cxhairs. And my big ask for all of you is go check out. I've been putting up lots and lots of videos, sort of finishing up the Cyclocross Nationals with some cool little mini-sodes, which aren't too big of a time investment for you, but I think you'll dig them if you go to youtube.com/cxhairs. They are all there, or you could just go to cyclocrosstelevision.com. You can get there that way as well. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
Whoa. I think that's it.
All right.
I think you nailed it.
Okay. Scott, great talking to you. Let's let this last caller take us out.
All right. See you later.
Hey, is this the cyclocross hotline? Oh, good. I'm glad that I reached somebody. Hey, I'm still down here on the bottom of the course, kind of just past the plunge. What? Oh, yeah, here in Louisville. I lost my shoe down here, and it came off while I was running, and I've been looking for it, and I can see that kind of up above that they've taken down already some of the course, and I need somebody to go over to tell the officials that I'm probably going to DNF. So I'm hoping you can help me with that. Number 506. Thank you. Do that. And I've also if you see Jamie, Mark, Evie, Andrew, Thomas, David, or Alan, we're all sharing a wristband, and I can see that they've taken down one of the fences down here on the edge of the course in this part of the course. So if they want the wristband, they can just come around the edge here and then come and get it for me. So let them know that so that they can get back in. That would be awesome. Let's see. Oh, I mean, it looks like it's drying up a little bit too. Like maybe the next race is maybe back on intermediate tires. It's making it a little bit harder to find my shoe here, but man, it was one of those nice blue ones that everyone wears, and I'm not leaving here without it. So I'm going to keep digging. But thanks for your help. Bye.